Welcome to the show. This episode is going to be a little bit different. Holly and I are pulling back the curtain on what we've been seeing inside Empire Ag's real stories. From Idaho to South Carolina, folks are making big moves and we are walking right alongside them.
All right, I'm excited. I think to kick it off today, Jonathan, I don't know, we have a lot going on, but let's start with succession. We've got a client of ours out in South Carolina that you've worked with for quite some time in various capacities, but I would say a big project you've worked with him lately has been on a big succession plan. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing for him there? What made his situation unique?
Yeah, I think they're all succession plans are unique. I mean, in the fact that you've got assets that everybody wants to get paid from in agriculture. All these assets have inflated prices now. And so it's a delicate balance of finding where the value is. The person that's going to be buying out and continuing the operation, were they there during this whole buildup? Were they there to contribute? And I think that is something that's unique. In this situation, this particular person, I mean, he spent 20 something years working right alongside and in that operation. So, at what point does that value get a dollar amount, or a
Yeah.
discount towards that initial purchase? And I think that's kind of one of the big things that I think we had to kind of balance in this situation was determining, that value, because there's something there, even if they didn't contribute dollars, but maybe 20 years of their life was spent working on the operation with, I mean, let's face it, probably not the same, dollar figure salary that you could have gotten working in town.
I know that you said each situation is unique, but I also think probably a lot's the same. And yes, every situation is unique, but I don't know. What are the things we need to start thinking about to say, hey, this might be me? Let's start to get a plan together.
Well, the one thing that I've seen, and it doesn't matter where you're at, is there's an emotional aspect to succession planning. There's hard conversations that may not have happened 10 years ago, 15 or 20. There's always going to be somebody that keeps score and somebody that doesn't. And so whenever I've noticed meeting with these families, it's been interesting. Those two components are always there.
Do you think someone always keeps the score? This is me just asking. Do you really think someone always keeps
They
the
do.
score?
They'll
Yeah.
remember that 15
Okay.
years ago, you didn't reimburse them $3,200 for whatever it was. And that stuff comes up when we're trying to divide up estates that are worth 10, 15, $20 million. And that $3,200 thing that you didn't do 15 or 20 years ago, it's going to come out. And that's going to be the straw that we're going to fight over for 6 months because someone can't get over that.
And I think that's probably speaking to the emotional toll.
Farming and ranching it's high stress. We've got a lot of money out there. A lot of us have done without for a lot of years just to build this business, to build it where it is. And so when it's time to finally retire, it's hard to turn those reins over to that next generation. And I think that you mix that emotions with the fact of like kind of cutting loose of your baby, so to speak.
We raise our children, but we also raise our business. And I feel like you and I feel like that. I feel like our Empire Ag is probably our fourth child. Consumes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of focus. We were talking about turning our kids out one day, just earlier today at lunch. And it's like, how do you turn out your baby, your business to the next? That's a whole other conversation.
I think a lot of it goes back to having that confidence, that that person has been here. If they have that ability to take that farm over and keep it moving forward. And that's not always the case. Like sometimes there really is a family member that wants to take the farm over or a non-family member, and you really want to make sure and protect those assets and you want to allow that person to flourish. And what that looks like for everybody is different. Some people want to be involved in that transition period, maybe for 2 years, maybe for 5. But then some give me my check and I'm out the back door and good luck. Like anything that happens from here on out, I'm done. And that's okay.
But who do you think is really truly ready to take this step and talk about their succession plan?
We've got a lot of fathers that are in their 60s to 75. We're in a decreased, market environment. We came off of some pretty good highs. A lot of guys have a lot of cash built up over the course of a 50-year farming career. So they're in an environment in which they're fixing to start burning equity. This is a good opportunity for you, and not to set up the second generation or your son for failure, but like this is a good opportunity for you to retire on the top. You're flush with cash. You're sitting in a
Mhm.
good spot. Hopefully, your debt load it was relatively low or none, and it's a good spot where we can kind of do some things finance wise to
Mhm.
make things work. Now, I will tell you, the earlier that you get started in this, the better, because there's tools out there where we can utilize different life insurance policies. There's a lot of tools at our disposal that we can get some financing and allow the farm, like not just the next generation, but allow the farm to continue to flourish, but also retire you and pass that farm to the next generation. And I think the earlier you get on that and the earlier you make those plans, the less likelihood that we're going to have a big emotional breakdown that could draw some strife in the family.
I think it's been interesting to watch, particularly this one, because you worked with this person for a while. And so it's been interesting to watch the conversations happen because they've done some of the mindset work, the financial work, laid the foundation, the groundwork, if you will, to kind of be prepared for these conversations. Because our client was on the, I guess, the receivership side, right? Like they're getting it passed down to them. They're not the ones that are passing it down yet.
Yeah.
But I feel like because he has put in the work, he was ready for some of the hard conversations that you talked about. He was ready for the financial framework to help structure and set up what this is going to look like on the other side. But I also think it's kind of cool. And it was good to watch even the other side. We got to bring in, the parents and the family members. And I think you had kind of worked with them kind of on mindset shift. Just the work that Empire Ag does in addition to this. Kind of talk a little bit more about how we structure our service,
Yeah.
including our mastermind, and how all that I think has really beautifully kind of worked itself out through this particular succession plan and this project.
We talk a lot about body, mind, and spirit being the main pillars. And I feel like that really goes hand in hand because this particular gentleman has been with us. This is his fourth year working with us. And so it's been a shift from, a scarcity mindset when we first started to now really planning for the future and actually taking steps to take this on. Because I don't think that individual would be mentally ready 4 years ago, but today, he's taken the steps and that trajectory, not only from the finance side of things, the accounting side of things, it goes back to that personal level of growth and being able to have that confidence in himself and his abilities to really step into that. And I think that's been a great, great testament to what we've done here and that it is much more than just consulting. I think don't go into it thinking that you're going to be able to solve this. And 100%, I think you need to hire someone from outside in order to serve as that mediator in amongst the family because there's a lot of hard things that can come out during these situations. And I jokingly say that I can leave there and you all can hate me together and be unified as a family, but the day that you start tit for tat communicating back and forth with each other and you're bringing up stuff from 10, 15 years ago, I can tell you right now, you've just set the negotiations back 6 months every time.
I was going to wrap up here, but I would like to say we are not lawyers. We don't give legal advice. So I guess kind of speak to just your overall role in
Yeah.
that. Like you've kind of set in like as a mediator, I guess would be the best way to describe it. But I do want to make it clear that we're
Yeah,
not providing.
I've sat through these discussions and kind of orchestrated the framework. We draft up the contract that we all agree on, and then we have their legal counsel for their state. Maybe they have somebody in house, or if we know someone that we can refer them to, we refer them to, and we work through that so that they have something to give that attorney. Boom, we get it done, we get it signed, and then they can move on. Well, let's shift gears, Holly. We had some new clients come in 2 weeks ago, I guess it was 3 weeks ago, that from Idaho. They heard about us through social media, and then also a friend had told them about us. So they scheduled a meeting, and they ended up joining our mastermind to really work on themselves, and farming's tough, but there's an added pressure when you start mixing the finance world. And so we all love farming and ranching. It's beautiful. It's a great thing to be a part of. But it was interesting to watch as they saw what we have to offer and realize, like, where has this been during our whole farming career? Like, this is a great thing. And so as we go through this whole process, more's coming out about where we're at from the accounting standpoint. The wife, she performs the accounting now. It's not her favorite thing. It's not something she's really excited about doing. So she's actually going to be working with Empire Financial Services now. Kind of excited about that. Maybe we can help her in that journey to where it makes it simpler. She does a better job. She feels good about the work that's out there. And I think that's going to be kind of interesting as we move forward.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's been cool to bring them in and bring them along, and so I'm excited and looking forward to working with them. I guess I'm going to flip it over to you just a little bit because I know you did more of their initial calls. Tell me why when they joined, why they joined, what stood out during their onboarding, just for people, other folks that are listening.
One of the big things that I noticed real quick was just a lack of trust in their banking system. And
Mm-hmm.
not that their particular banker was bad,
Mm-hmm.
they just felt like at any minute the shoe could drop. Looking at their financials, going over everything, they were stout. They are very much a very, very profitable operation. They're in growth mode. And it's kind of one of those situations where they've got the row crop operation up on the flats, had some land down by the river, and they wanted to buy the ranch in between. They had an opportunity that kind of showed up. They needed to get. They also have potatoes that are contracted. You got to look at it like this. I mean, they only owed a quarter of the total value of the potatoes, and that was all that was out there debt wise. They had the cash to put down on this ranch, but the bank was kind of putting pressure on them. And so we looked at it, and I'm like, this makes absolutely no sense. So as we go through there, we found an avenue where EA Capital was able to step in and kind of provide some funding, some stopgap funding that would bridge them until these potatoes are gone and their heavy cash
Mm-hmm.
flow. What I love about this, though, Holly, is that since working with us, they want to be investors. What better way than to have the guys we're helping investing in our EA
Yeah.
Capital?
Yeah, I know we were talking about that just recently about how it's kind of been a side effect, I guess, of this whole EA Capital piece of the puzzle. It's like our community here, our network. It's now it's all help. They're all helping each other. It's like I think we thought we would have to find solely outside sources of investments and investors, and it's just not that
It's
that's not what
organically
we're seeking,
grown.
but it's yeah, that has been a really cool development, if you will, through all of this. I guess if we circle back though to just bringing on new clients, which we're excited about, what are these folks prioritizing first? I know EA Capital stepped in, was able to help. Is it their finances? Are they systems, operations,
I think
payment?
it's gonna be a combination, and I think what I've identified just working with hundreds of people all over the U.S. Like, you can kind of pick those points, and I see it inadvertently. Mindset will be a big portion of that early on setup, and that's partly where we get to know them where they are. And I mean that in the fact that, like, where they are currently with the pressures that they have of the business, what they've got going on. And then we can establish those systems. Everybody's different and they have their own system. But if I can find, or you can find something that makes it more efficient and helps them be more fulfilled, that's where we need to tackle. And so with them, that's one thing we're going to look at is the accounting and the bookkeeping. I don't know how many
Yeah.
wives that I've talked to that have given up their identity, their
Mm,
career, what separated them that was their piece of their life to come
yeah.
back to the farm. And when they come back to the farm, a lot of times the accounting and bookkeeping ends up getting dumped into their lap. It's not that they're not smart enough to do it. It's just, it's not their
Right. No.
passion.
Yeah, we've had that same conversation, I think, on this very podcast. And it's okay if it's not your passion. But yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's what I think has been interesting. Our group of women in our network, like I think being able to find that avenue where they can sort of find their identity within the farm, whatever
Hmm.
that may be. But like find those things that feed you and don't seem like a dread. They don't just, if that's
Hey,
not
and
doing
also
the accounting.
some of it just might not be doing any of it. I can be a meal runner and a go getter, and that's my role, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we've run into a lot of that where I feel like through a lot of the conversations I've had with the wives and the women involved, it's they felt like they had to have a job, whatever that is,
To
on the
justify
farm
it.
to justify whatever that is, leaving an in farm or an in town job. Hey, you know what? We're keeping humans alive out here and trying to keep the bus rolling. Like maybe hey, that's enough. That is
Yeah.
enough.
I do agree with you on that because I do think that demographic, the women, I feel like probably struggle the most in that mindset role because a lot of times they're the ones that sacrifice the career to come back to the farm or to
Hmm.
help the farm. And the farm grows, but it comes with its own stresses. And so not
Yeah.
only do you have a stressed out husband that comes home, but now
Yeah.
you're the one that's got the books. You're the one that like you're
Yeah.
carrying that stress too. So now we got two stressed out people. It puts a strain on their relationship. And
Are you speaking
well,
from experience?
I mean, maybe there's a little bit of experience in that, but I do think that as anybody that's listening out there, that this is a real issue, and it's
Mhm.
okay. And I want you to know that like there's a place out here. Holly, all of our team and all the ladies that are present, like they all get together, and you guys have different events and things that you host within our community to try to get these women engaged. And I, for one, just encouraged you, matter of fact, that we need to get more for you ladies because you are very much
Well,
very into your work.
that's what I was going to say. We were going to talk about first wins with new clients. If you want to talk about first wins, I think us identifying through these conversations that you've had lately with new folks coming in is that I am going to do a better job. We are going to do a better job. My team is going to do a better job of bringing the women inside because we have a voice, we have a purpose and a passion, and it may or may not be on farm related, but I think we need to do a better job of connecting together within our network and our community because I think we're all doing our things in different ways.
Hmm.
And so I'm really excited to kind of, I don't know, bring that back more together. And so I would say first wins, maybe not for the client, but for Empire Ag and myself, is I'm really excited to kind of get this off the ground and running even more so and make some good moves forward and good steps forward about bringing the women of Empire Ag together.
Absolutely. That's going to be huge, I think. We've got to have both partners involved and invested in this group. I think
Yep.
it benefits everyone. Uh,
Yep. 100%.
it helps bring clarity in all phases of the business, and I think we've got to alleviate that stress where you feel like you're just in a mousetrap and you can't get out. And that's where
Yeah.
I think a lot of farmers and ranchers feel right now.
Yeah. I do too. Well, I guess speaking to that, just we identified first wins that I guess it was an Empire Ag side win, but I also hopefully feel like it was this wife of this particular person. Hopefully, it ends up being a win for her too, to feel like she has a place to belong and a place to come and let it out or whatever it needs to be. Tell the listeners, tell me a little bit more about how we tailor like what we do in the mastermind experience to each operation because obviously with this particular client we identified the financial need, the capital need, and hopefully bringing the spouse along with the husband. I don't know, just talk maybe a little bit more about that.
A lot of programs, have a one size fits all, and that's perfectly fine. There's some really good stuff out there. I wanted to go at more of a tailored and customized program. One, because I've lived it and I've tried to compare my operation to other people's operation. And then I always come
Mm-hmm.
back to like I can't get to where they are the way they did it because there's so many different factors. So I think
Mm-hmm.
us being able to identify that and see where everyone's at and meet them at their level and where
Mm-hmm.
their growth pattern is, what they want to achieve in their operation, to me, like that is what really separates our mastermind program, when it comes to being able to develop and build our members. Everyone's at a different phase of the business. Everyone's their goals are different. Some of them are at the latter phase and they're big enough. They're at that phase
Mm-hmm.
where it's more about efficiency than it is growth.
Yeah.
And then you have some that are at the early stages that are in survival mode and scrapping mode.
Yeah. I agree. Well, we've had a lot of conversations about that recently, just about different levels, growth levels, efficiency is like what's your priority? And that's how we're going to help you win, right? Like we want to
Mm-hmm.
identify the problem so that we can help you find the solution, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. But I feel like in that we have also had a lot of conversations lately about our mastermind and how we tailor it and how we've organized it. And so now we actually have like what we call two levels. Will you speak to like why we have two levels, how that came to be, like how you feel that could fit in for various folks?
We've got our 7250, which is you're still part of the network. You still have everything, but we've cut out a lot of the one on one. So it's kind of a immerse yourself into the community, learn what you can. We have different
Mhm.
trainings and things available that you can be a part of and continue that growth pattern. But maybe you're not willing to just jump in there wholeheartedly yet. And then we move to our upper tier level, which is our elite members. And
Mhm.
they're at $18,000, which it's an investment, but it's an investment in yourself. You're going to have our team. You're also going to have our software that we can go in and clean up some of your financials, get your managerial accounting cleaned up. There's a lot of things that you get in that level that it's hard to quantify dollar wise.
Well, and I think
I
the
think
piece that
it's
you're leaving out of there is that's also all the one-on-one time with you. So, yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that's the other piece I was going to get there. The one-on-one
sorry.
time is the one-on-one time is a lot, and you ask yourself, well, okay, why is that valuable? Really, like why do you deem that being valuable? Well, let me tell you, I have worked with hundreds of farms and ranches all over the United States. I've worked with hundreds of businesses. I see it. I see the patterns. I see it so much now that you and I can have a conversation. We go through your stuff. I can identify it. You don't have to take my advice. You don't. And it's not going to hurt my feelings, but I'm going to give it. And sometimes those are tough decisions and tough conversations that we have. But I promise that I will pour my heart into that to help you get to the next level. That is the one thing. In doing that, have we limited our growth with Empire Ag by keeping it tailored in that 101? Maybe. But at the same time, I want to have a top tier service that we can help get our guys to the next level. And there's a lot to that. That one-on-one is where you and we're identifying a lot of the things that you struggle. And I know that you have that negative loop in your mind when you're driving down the pickup. Am I doing everything right?
I don't think I've ever been more called out than I went through this myself. And so I didn't realize how bad the negative loop was until one day I made a comment out loud and someone else heard me and they said, Holly, you need to fix the way you talk to yourself. And I was like, what are it was just like, what are you talking about? And so I personally know the value. I mean, obviously, this is our company, and I want all the people to do all the things and join to make themselves a better human. But I can tell you from personal experience, I know what you're speaking to, Jonathan, with that negative self talk, self loop, or whatever, that you don't even, it gets to be such a normal thing. You don't even know how bad it is until you accidentally say something out loud to
Well,
yourself, which maybe someone thought I was crazy, but thankfully she was sweet enough to call me out and be like, you need to talk to yourself nicer. And so I know that that's an encouragement that you give to your guys and women.
we spend a lot of time alone, a lot of time in the machine, and it's go go. And you get up early and you bust your tail. And a lot of times you don't think about it, but you're negative, and you got that negative
Mm-hmm.
loop sitting there just feeding it. And you almost
Yeah.
manifest the negative and all the things that you're sitting here telling yourself aren't going to happen, couldn't happen. You sit here and feed that animal, and next thing you know, whatever you're worried about, it's happening. And I truly
Yeah.
believe we have to get ourselves on a path and believe in ourselves. Like, it's okay.
Amen. I think that it sounds so simple, but I mean, just through my own personal growth journey and just life, you don't realize how important that is. You have to take care of you
I mean, the one
just as
thing
much.
that I
Yeah.
think people that are non-ag, the one thing that I think they don't understand is how many times we get kicked in the knees in agriculture, but
Mm-hmm.
yet we got to keep going. We
Well,
got to
didn't
keep
you,
moving.
weren't you at a meeting with an investor and weren't you kind of telling them about, I'm, don't know the details, but maybe I'll tell you enough that you can finish my story. But weren't you at an investor meeting and you were telling them, because it was a group of investors for fundraise, for EA Capital stuff. You're trying to, just real life. Like, this is the amount of money these folks are moving and dealing with. This is how much they make. This is the margins. It could be the whim of a good season, which is a couple of months, or not.
I was actually, I remember I was talking about one of my guys had a combine motor blew up, and it was 60
Mm-hmm.
grand, and we were sitting there talking about how 2,000 acre farmer, before like a motor blew up, and I'm talking 10, 15, 20 years ago, if you spent 5, 6, 7,000 bucks, you could find a freaking motor and stick in the thing and get the crop out,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't a big
Yeah.
deal. You could pay
Yeah.
for it. Nowadays, you have some of these uh-ohs that happen on the
Mm-hmm.
farm, and they cost 60, 70, 80 grand, 100 grand. And you put that on your short-term liabilities, and all of a sudden, you
Mm-hmm.
got to pay for it in a year spread out on 1,500 acres that are already, your profit margins are like that. And
Mm-hmm.
it totally flips. And I feel like they didn't realize how little money these guys were actually keeping in their pocket on an operation that generates $1 million to $5 million gross. But after that, I mean,
Oh
like
no.
they loved it. They see, and they didn't realize how tough farming and ranching is. They just assumed that, the media tells them we get all these government payments, which it's great. I mean, okay, it's a Band-Aid, keeps you going. You got crop insurance, you got LRPs, you got all this stuff, that they're doing for you, which is great. Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you just get back to zero, you're not making headway. You're not getting
No.
ahead. And you still
Yeah.
have a family that you're trying to provide for this year. Well, if you didn't make money this year and you didn't make money last year, are you going to be a positive individual when you're moving into 2026?
Probably not. That's where you need a group and a network to chat this thing through. I mean, seriously, like you need, because I think the strongest words I think I've heard through all this personal growth journey I've done and we've helped and assisted with other folks is the me too. Yes, me too. I'm so glad that I'm not alone.
Yeah. I think we've got the different generations dealt with different things. And I think that's another aspect is we've had the generation, the boomers, they want just grab your old bootstraps and go. Well, like I've heard stories from some of my older generation where the one crop paid all their debts off, built a new house, bought a new car, bought 2 new tractors. Their life was set up from then on. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen that since we farmed. I have not seen that. Now, I will tell you, cattle, we are getting to the point right now where cattle, I do feel like, are kind of giving us that opportunity. And it's been
Yeah.
10 years of nothing, or 10 years of breaking even, making a little bit, to now reaping
Well,
rewards. But can you stay alive for 10 years to get to that 1 year that you actually make a profit?
which I feel like that's probably a good time to bring in. Let's talk about EA Capital then. Hey, you've done 10 years of nothing, like you said.
Yeah.
So how are we making it? How are we surviving? I guess let's talk about the guys that are taking advantage of EA Capital. Let's just talk about EA Capital in action.
We had a family in Montana that they've been customers for a good while. I mean, we know them very well, and their bank. We were working on a refinance, and the bank was bought out, and leadership change. Next thing you know, they're calling their note due, and it was a 10% loan to value. It just escalated quickly, so we stepped in and got them a loan with EA Capital to cover that debt so that it was okay and nobody was taking the ranch. None of that crap was going to happen.
Well, and I think I don't know if it's a misnomer, but a misconception, something that I feel like we've butt up against is EA Capital is only being used for like distressed farmers or distressed loans. Like
No,
that
no,
is not the case. And so
no.
I think now is our opportunity just to, I don't know, tell the folks out there that.
We're working with folks in a lot of different capacities, from doing the bridge loans to straight up operating notes to equipment. I mean, we're working in a lot of different ways to try to help them get through. I think one of the big things that I've seen, especially with cattle, I mean, the stocker feedlot sector right now, you've got a lot of capital outlay. And
Mhm.
these banks are scared to death because what happened in 2015? Well, when you look at the cow calf sector, everybody was buying. Everybody wanted to buy. They wanted to own the factory, because the calves were worth $1,500. We had never sold $1,500 feeder calves. Well, now guess what? That's a thing of the past because these feeder cattle. I mean, we're selling $2,100 to $2,700 feeder calves, and that's a lot of money out there. So I think for
Yep.
us to step in, understand it, help them with their risk management side of things so that we're covered. I mean, it has been awesome to watch that because if you're in the feedlot sector, you've got infrastructure, you've got a hotel, and
Mhm.
you got to keep it full. If you don't have it
Yep.
full, you're not making money. And then guess what?
Mhm.
The bank's going to be knocking, saying you're distressed, and then they're going to want their piece of the pie and pull the rug out from under you. We've seen it time and time again.
So we've started to deploy our first loans through EA Capital. I know you briefly mentioned in there that we're obviously livestock is a big one. We're doing these bridge loans and some operating type loans. I know you mentioned the couple in Montana, but there's been some others already. Just speak to the stress that we have seen just dissipate in real time. I think even back when I was a child, you read like purpose driven life. Like what's my
Yeah.
purpose? Like somehow this EA Capital has felt like the culmination of like all these little things that life has given us.
I think God's opened doors that I could never even imagine. And to have the trust from our investors to take care of this sector, and I've lived it. And the one thing that I think is all the way. I mean, everything that we have built with Empire Ag, Empire Financial Services, and EA Capital, it's everything that I needed. It's
Mhm.
everything that I struggled through to get myself on the other side. And that has been the piece that we built. And so to watch with EA Capital that development phase where I'm going to tell you, are there some sorry banks and some sorry bankers out there? Absolutely. There are some folks that don't need to be in that business. And are there good bankers out there? You bet, because we've worked with several, and those people need to be replicated. And I don't know how, but we've got to get those folks in leadership positions so that they can replace themselves with 10 people that understand
Yep.
agriculture and can actually protect this industry. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen is EA Capital is going to rise to the forefront, and you're going to see private credit take over not only another 25% of the market share, but you're going to see banks struggle. And I bet we take over 50% of the market share in America with private credit. It's already gone from, I think it was 11% of all loans in all sectors was private credit. Now that's 38%. We're not far from getting to
Mm.
50%. Wait until you start seeing 50 and 55% of the whole loan portfolio for America being derived with private credit. Like that's when you're going to see a shift in people realizing that, hey, something needs to change because these banks are losing their revenue stream at that point. And part of it goes back to regulatory. The regulatory environment for a conventional bank is horrible.
Well, you did talk in there about how, like, why we built EA Capital. And I think the heart of that is that we built what we needed. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, not, I mean, at various points in our lives through all of the businesses, Empire Ag, EFS, EA Capital. I don't know. Do you have any more to add to that story there?
I got to go back and I'm going to give kudos to David Bailey. David Bailey was my banker, and was he the best ag lender when I first got started? He didn't know ag when we got started. He'll
Sorry,
admit it.
David.
And one of these days, I've got to get David on the podcast because, now he's risen up. He's president of First Financial Bank Shares. If I had to guess, a man that goes from a lowly lender up to the top, like that is awesome. That's awesome to see a growth path like that. And David taught me banking and I taught him agriculture. And I think
Yeah.
having a relationship with that, with someone that's willing to take a chance on you, the individual. Now, I will tell you, I don't think that David could do what he did with us back then in today's banking environment. And so for me, I feel like that has been a big shift in that whole sector. I think it's the regulatory environment, and we are going back to, I hate to say it, we're going back with EA Capital into more of a relationship based banking.
I
Like
know
I
that's
am
been super important to us. I hope if you hear nothing else, it's personal touches, tailor made, relationship banking. Like, I think we have that even in one of our core values. It's like we don't build client lists, we build relationships because that is what's important to us. And also, I mean, it's kind of why EA Capital exists in terms of we also want you to be a part of our other programs, our mastermind, our EFS,
if
because
you
we
are
want to have a relationship with these folks.
if you are willing to invest in yourself, we're willing to invest in you. It's a two-way street. And so if somebody comes in and hits us up, hey, I just want to borrow money, I want to borrow, I'm sorry, but there's a line that I draw. And it's the ones that truly see the value and are ready for change in their business, that want to invest in themselves. Those are the folks that I want to work with. And you will see that they will start to add value. They'll get their business turned around, and they'll get themselves, where they've got some clarity. And I think that's the other piece to this is you can sit here and you can work, and we always talk about working harder. And I think ag is the worst. It's like, well, if
Yeah.
something's not going right, what do? We go work harder. Instead of coming home at 9 o'clock, we're going to come home at 10 to prove something.
Hmm.
It's ego.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, that's not the stuff you need to work on. You guys know
Hmm.
how to work hard. You've proven that.
Yeah.
It's time to work on you, and everything else will come into place.
I think that also we are in a unique position with EA Capital in that I feel like so far anyway, and I hope this continues, we're building with those relationships on both sides of the lend of the loan, if you will.
Hmm.
So I feel like we're also establishing and building relationships, hopefully on the investor side, so that these folks know who and why we're taking care of and why it's so important that we're building relationships with our lender, with our borrowers as well. I don't know. Maybe you want to speak more to that. Maybe I'm not quite articulating it well, but
Well, I mean, I think not only are we trying to give our investors a return, but I also want them to know the impact of their investing. Anybody can go put their money in the stock market, okay? But not everybody can go invest and save a family farm.
and that's happened already.
It's happened. It's happened on 4 different occasions where
Yeah.
we've been able to step in and save the family farm. And there's not many times that you can match up investors being able to get a return and
Not a distressed loan. It was these weird circumstances with just pulling things out from
well,
under people. And it was
yeah,
just this, it has been the strangest, most interesting, most hardest, I don't know, but also at the end of the day, most rewarding thing to watch, to be able to come in and help, but at the same time to kind of watch that unfold in real time. These circumstances and situations that these folks have had to deal with has been hard to watch.
Well, I'll tell you what and this again, this is just my assertion as to what's going on in the banking world, but I think things are tighter in this economy than what people want to say. And I think you're seeing
Yeah.
deposits erode away. You've got
Yeah.
inflation in the ag balance sheet. And so what's happened is all of a sudden we're out of whack, and you cannot just straighten that up overnight. And so I think a lot of these banks are under pressure. Some of them are selling out. Some of them are having to be gobbled up by the bigger bank. The bigger bank can utilize that to balance out their portfolio. And we're seeing that happen all over, and it's happening widespread where all of a sudden they want to get rid of 20% of their ag loans, and they're just shucking them. And it doesn't matter if you're distressed or not. Like, you just may be on the lottery that gets called and said, hey,
It feels
guess
like
what?
that. It's a lottery.
Yeah. It's been interesting to be on this side of that and to get those phone calls and to look through people's
Hmm.
financials and to say, hey, yeah, why did they call this loan? And to actually talk to some of the lenders, and they're like, look, we've had no problems with this client. Like, the
Yep.
leadership has said this one's gone. I don't know why. They won't tell us.
Hmm.
And so it is interesting, and it also puts you on edge if you're a farmer or rancher.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited about what we're doing. Hopefully, the listeners are too. I hope they'll continue to tune in. Just to close us out, this work that we're doing here at Empire Ag isn't about shiny graphics or viral videos. But one of us on this podcast today does love a good TikTok.
Oh, I
It's about
do.
putting, tell them, turn it off. No, but it is about putting real solutions into the hands of real people.
Absolutely. I want you guys to know, like, you don't have to do this alone. If you want to learn more about our mastermind program, guys, book a discovery call. It doesn't cost you anything. You can find us there to book those calls at youragempire.com. Go there, check it out, book a call. It'll be with me, could be with Carmen, could be with Brooke, could be with Holly. We're going to make sure that you're taken care of. Thanks for tuning in to Your Ag Empire. Hit follow, and we'll see you next time. And don't forget, guys, be good or be good at it.